Hey, Paul.
Hey, Chris.
I had a thought.
What was it?
So I'm 100% okay with my wife murdering someone, but I'm 100% not okay with her cheating on me.
Is there any context to what the murdering is? What kind of murdering she's allowed to do? I mean, is this just in defense of her family, or is this just any sort of murdering that she might fancy?
Yeah. So I imagine that if she's murdering someone, she's got a reason, and I back her up in her reasoning for murdering someone. So this is literally, when you plan ahead. What's the term for like when you plan ahead for a murder?
Premeditated.
Premeditated. Yeah. This is 100% premeditated. She's got her plan. She's going to sneak in, change the clock like in that movie so that no one knows when she broke in and get away with it. So that's also, I guess part of it is that I'm assuming she's smart enough not to get caught. So if she's murdering someone and getting caught, then we're going to have a problem. Right. But if I'm assuming she's going to get away with it. She's a smart person.
Would you rather that she killed somebody and you never knew about it? Or would you rather she cheated on you and you never knew about it?
I would rather she cheated on me and never knew about it. If those were the two options, I would prefer she never cheated on me generally. Would be the general preference.
Just as a general rule?
Yeah, but no, so the murdering can be on the open, it can be secret. I don't give it. Like she can literally be murdering everybody every day. She could be, Dexter, and like that's fine. Right? Dexter did good during the day when he wasn't. And even at night, right?
Well, he was a good guy, though,
yeah.
Right? I mean, he was a murdering homicidal maniac, but he was still a good guy, at least in the context of the show.
Yeah,
right.
And so, even if she's Miguel or whatever, and she's just murdering for fun, she's got a reason. Whatever it is, she's got a reason. It's her thing. She could just don't get caught. Just be like Dexter and don't get caught.
Okay, so let's extend this out a little bit further. What if she required your assistance in some way? What if she asked you?
I'm too lazy for that. That's not happening. Fundamentally, I think what this thought is about isn't so much the murdering or the cheating. It's really about trust. And so I trust her that she's murdering for some reason. But I've established essentially with her that if you cheat on me, we're getting divorced. Like it's not for me. It's super black and white. She's actually pretty gray on that concept. But for me, it's like, all right, you cheated on me. I've lost all trust in you. I can never trust you again. We're done. But with murdering someone, unless she's murdering me, she's going to have a reason, I'd imagine. And
right.
I don't trust her reasoning.
Although, I mean, people murder people all the time, I'm told. It happens quite a bit. And
that's what the TV tells you?
And yeah. And even though to the murderer, it might seem like such a good idea at the time, but it might not be a great idea for everybody else, especially the person getting murdered. So it's a very long stretch for me to say, okay, my wife can murder whomever she wants because I trust her judgment. I mean, to me, I would think that you'd at least want some, to give notes on the kill list before she goes out and executes the list.
Yeah, I prefer if you just leave these. It's kind of like the opposite of that thing from Friends where you can like known people you're allowed to cheat with. This is like people I'd prefer if you didn't murder.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta get it laminated. Right. That's how I know it's official.
It's a pretty extreme difference because murder is, I guess we could say, even if somebody has, this is going to get dark, but let's say that someone has killed your family, and so you feel that the eye for an eye method is legitimate in this case, and so you go out and you go and murder that person. Even that is suspect at best morally. It's pretty extreme. So where does the black and white come from in terms of cheating versus the gray area in the murder? Like, is there something that's dictating this, or is this just a feeling that you have?
Yeah. So I think this probably has to do with the impact on our relationship more than anything else. So
right.
we don't have any enemies. I don't think she's planning on murdering anyone to be like upfront with this, right? Like it's a hypothetical, right. But
it is suspect we're putting this on tape just in case it ever happens,
just so my intentions are known when we go to court. I think it's more of our relationship type thing. So cheating on me when I've made it so clear that it's like the one thing that you can't do, like I'm allowing murder, but not cheating, would be like a total and complete break of trust where it's like to me personally versus murdering someone else. Even if it's like a close family member, so I prefer she didn't murder our son, but like, right, it doesn't have like a super impact on me. and so the reason why I also said like she doesn't get caught. So if she gets caught in this whole process, then she's going to jail. That's also not okay. So I think it's more of like, how I trust her not to impact our relationship with what she does outside of our relationship.
So for someone who has been cheated on, it is not a very fun experience. And in the sense of, it's almost sort of like the same thought experiment of, would you accept $1 million if it meant that someone randomly in the world died immediately?
Uh-huh.
And it's that same kind of idea where it doesn't really affect my individual bubble. Even if you were to have somebody that you knew killed, it still does not penetrate that immediate familial bubble. And I think that's kind of the same thing that we're talking about here, because being cheated on sucks.
Have you been cheated
there's
on?
Nothing. Yeah.
Huh.
And it's not.
Can you tell me what that feeling is? So the closest thing I've had was that a guy at work let a whole office know that we were closing the office before we told them. And I had been working with him for 5 years. And that was the closest that I've experienced probably to being cheated on, where it was like your stomach sinks, your heart crushes itself, and you're like, I put a lot of trust in this human, and they just, for whatever reason, like just completely tossed out our relationship. So that's the closest experience that I've had. And I still work with him.
That's a pretty, well, so that's pretty close. It's probably maybe a bit more intensified when it's someone that you're in a romantic relationship with, and a committed romantic relationship with. It's hard to put into words. Everything that you said definitely is hits the mark, but it is more. It is a failure of trust, and it's a betrayal, especially when it comes out of nowhere. If it's something where you kind of slowly see it coming, mm-hmm. or if in the relationship you kind of halfway were expecting it, which there's probably two types of cheating: the one that you were expecting, and the one that you weren't.
Yeah.
The one that you weren't is pretty bad. But
how does that happen? Was it, which one was it for you?
In retrospect, it was the one where I should have seen it coming.
Okay.
But at the time, it was kind of out of nowhere. But of course, looking back, I was like, oh, of course, of course that was happening. But I don't know. It was honestly one of the worst things that's kind of ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Emotionally at the time. And it kind of
lingers?
For me, it lingers only in the way, like, how did I let this happen to myself?
Okay.
Because there are so many ways that I could have seen it coming, or so many conversations I could have had that would have either made it never happen, or it would have mitigated the effect in some way. But either I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't emotionally intelligent enough to see what was going on. But for me, the biggest thing is not so much anger against the person who cheated on me, but anger at myself for it, because you let it happen. You know, you kind of feel like a chump in a way. You kind of feel like, what am I doing here? And so that's kind of the way it felt for me. It was very emotionally scarring, actually. It happened in my early 20s. So okay. I think if something like that were to happen now, it would probably be a different experience.
Do you think, looking back on it, it was? So you just said it feels like your fault. So in my head, the decision to cheat is entirely on the person that does the cheating. But you're saying you kind of, it's extra worse because it's almost like self-inflicted. Looking back on it, do you actually see it as being self-inflicted now that 20 years later or whatever, now that you're 47 million years old, right? Do you think that it is partially your fault? I'm not like victim shaming here. I'm just wondering, like, academically, like, is there something on the person who didn't cheat that caused the person to cheat, or is it purely the cheater's like dilemma?
Anybody who justifies cheating with that person led me to it, or I was pushed out of something, I think is all bullshit, because there's never a point where you can't sit down and say with your partner that you may cheat on and have an adult conversation about what you're not getting in the relationship and what you are going to require from that point forward, mm-hmm. versus just going off and cheating and saying, like, well, you made me do this. It's always on the cheater to have been cheating, for the blame in terms of that. But in terms of me any responsibility that I bear on that? I think maybe in that I was with a person who was behaving in such a way that I should have just gotten out of the relationship.
Yeah, no, like as a reasonable adult, you can sit down and have the conversation instead of doing the cheating, and it might lead to breaking up. But you basically, so that's part of the reason why I'm so against it is like, if you cheated on me, that really means you just wanted to break up and you couldn't tell me to my face, so you like had to go act on it some other way.
Well,
just so you know, Paul, though, that you are everything that I ever could want in a podcasting partner.
Well, thank you. I will say that when you're cheated on, it can create a dependence on the person who cheated on you, because there's a great, for me, there was a great deal of self-worth in how this person thought of me and myself. And so when that gets demolished, basically, when they cheat on you, that you create a dependence on approval and on basically approval from that person. So I think that's the problem with cheating, is that it's this weird addiction that starts to happen. You crave the positive attention from that point going forward, because obviously you have no reason to think that they do feel anything good about you. At least that's the thinking when you're in it. So that is the kind of the other side of it. Now, if you were to learn that your wife killed somebody, and let's pretend for the moment that in this scenario, she said, I killed somebody, I thought you should know, but I don't want to talk about it. Would that be enough for you?
Yes. Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to know why or who or how?
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I would be interested as a story to hear why, but, spousal privilege is there for a reason, and I think it's so that people can tell each other who they murdered. So...
but she didn't tell you who or like
why.
I mean, I feel like there's at least a why.
There's probably like a hierarchy of trust breaking things that you can do. And for me, right, so there's cheating's at the top, then there's going vegan, and then got in there. And then and then there's
time.
I did it. There's cheating on me, there's going vegan, there's probably like there's a lot of stuff in there that like she could probably do. I mean, probably hurting our son is somewhere up there that's not okay. I was actually talking about this last night. I was like, hey, you can go murder someone. I'll be okay with it. She's okay with me cheating on her physically, but not emotionally. So she was like, if you go on a trip and you get bored and you want to go have sex with someone, like that's whatever. But I don't want you to then have a relationship with that person where you're spending significant amount of time away from our family to be with that person. And so her like sense of cheating isn't like the physical, like that one act isn't as big a deal. It's more like the then time around it. So for me, the right. So that would be somewhere also like in between murder and cheating. I'm actually like really like honestly, like in all seriousness, unless she's like getting caught and spending a significant amount of time away from our family, I honestly really just don't care if she murders someone. And it's not, to me, it's like just an act. So murder in general is morally wrong, is ethically wrong, all that good stuff. But like in the terms of this thought, it's more of just like my wife as it doesn't have any impact on my sense of how I know my wife. And so It doesn't impact like our relationship.
So she can murder anybody she wants as long as she's home in time for dinner.
Exactly. It'd be better if she was cooking dinner, but
as long as she's home in time to cook dinner.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, I wonder about that, because I feel like that's kind of, I'm going to generalize here, so prepare yourself. I feel like that's kind of the difference between men and women, because men obviously are more sex forward in the sense of the biological imperative that it is to be a man. And I think women don't have that as much. For men, I think it's the opposite. In a way, if I'm abstracting myself, if I'm going into the abstract, I'm not going to abstract myself on the air. I promise I won't do that. But if I abstract, if I go into the abstract,
stay with us, Paul.
Would I rather have somebody physically cheat on me or emotionally cheat on me? I would take the emotional any day of the week. There's something about going, like, passing that physical barrier, literally and figuratively, where it's much more painful in my mind because I don't know. I think that men hold sex as a very sacred thing.
Do you mean sacred in the sense of like putting pussy on the pedestal from 40-Year-Old Virgin, or do you mean like it's like from more from right Pulp Fiction, where he's talking about right like a foot massage as being potentially more intimate than sex if it's kind of like almost the intent behind it.
Well, that's more of what it's going to lead to. I think a foot massage probably will lead to sex eventually, if not in the moment, definitely later on, right?
So, but let me rephrase real quick. It would be more like because sex is hard to achieve for men. This is going back to like our last podcast when we were talking about like one of our first ones, where like how easy it is to get a date, but like right, women in theory could like have sex with literally anybody they want,
right?
To a certain degree, and so like for us, it's like hard to get on some level, and so. To go and like, so it's like almost like I'm trusting you, or I'm not going to go out and try and get anymore, and so I trust you not to just like accept other people's penises.
Yes, yeah, yes, but we hold. I think men hold a lot of their self-worth in their sexual ability, and when our partner says by cheating to us, we take that as you're not good enough, you're a bad lover. And so I'm going to go elsewhere to get that. I think there's something psychological that is very difficult for us to handle. Mm-hmm. Versus with women, I don't think they have that. I don't think because maybe perhaps that's what, as you said, they value it less. And for whatever reason, whether it's because of availability or just hardwired, it's valued less. Maybe a little bit of both. But I think there's something ultimately about that slight where even if it's not true, because I think sex is very relative, and I think sex is very ephemeral in the sense that there is no absolute this person is better than this person at sex, or this I don't think that exists really. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very psychological thing as well
it can be
as
practiced, right? Like you can probably be better at physically doing things. I'm gonna hate it when my mother-in-law listens to this podcast. But right, like you can. So emotionally, I think also sex with someone that you love is probably similar, with no matter like who you're loving. But I bet you, physically, you can probably. I bet you people that do porn are just like on a performance level capable of doing better things than I can.
So as a side note, I wonder about that because it seems like in my very limited reading on the subject that I've done,
just reading on
just reading, yeah, I don't participate in pornography. I just read about it on.
Okay, so you're more of a porn historian than a porn partaker.
I'm a porn scholar.
Okay, thank you.
It seems very one note to me. Now, granted, I know that there are many different types of porn that some of which I would rather never see.
You just gotta expand your horizons, Paul. Just imagine what you could do with a rubber ducky.
I wonder about porn stars being better at sex because I don't know. Like, do you take your work home with you with in that way? Because it is kind of a show, right? Maybe it's less of a show for dudes than it is for women when you're a porn actor.
Yeah.
But it feels like kind of a show. I mean, I would think that there's more that goes into working out for men than there is in the actual like humping.
Oh, you mean like in pure? So like whereas like a professional, so let's say a professional football player, right, has extreme athletic ability that separates him from me. You're saying the actual act of like having sex is really just like a back and forth motion that like it's basically the same no matter whether it's a person, no matter who the person is.
For porn stars, when they're in them doing the thing with the camera, how do we know? How do we know that what they're doing
do you know how porn works, Paul? Are you sure you're a historian?
Look, I've just read on the subject. I have no idea what happens.
No, you should go. The internet was made for you to learn about this subject, so you should. If you type like any word into Google, it'll come back with porn.
All right. Well, let me just boot up Netscape here, and I'll get back to. I mean, so going back to your conversation with your wife about how she would prefer that you have a physical relationship with somebody else versus an emotional relationship with somebody else.
So it wasn't even emotional versus physical. It was like a time spent was kind of her concept. It was if it's a one-off thing or it's not interfering with our relationship, it's okay. And it's not, and it could also like duration. So like it shouldn't be an ongoing relationship. So as long as it's not eating up your time, as long as you're not like missing time with us to do it, and it's not an ongoing, continued relationship, I'm okay with it. So it wasn't. I guess it is maybe a little bit emotional, but to me, I got the impression from the conversation that it was much more literal, temporal kind of impact than anything else.
That seems like a very honest conversation, and so I wonder if most women, or if other women, how many other women would have that same outlook on men cheating or not cheating and that kind of thing. I wonder. That's it just seems like a very honest opinion.
Because she has a very right. Like I am also very black and white in many of my thoughts, and she is not. So we differ in that. She doesn't understand my logic on this one at all.
So just to go a little bit deeper into this, did you get the idea that she would be hurt more if you were having some sort of emotional relationship with somebody versus just a purely physical one that didn't take up a lot of time?
Yes.
Okay.
She wouldn't. It seemed like she didn't. She was like I was in New Orleans for my brother's bachelor party last weekend, and I was getting the impression from her like that I had sex with someone, she wouldn't care. That was kind of like the gist I was getting from the conversation.
Now, do you think that she feels that way because she knows you'll never do it, though?
That's what that was part of the conversation too, was like, I don't worry about her cheating on me ever. I don't worry about it, and I don't think she worries about it on my end. She's probably more worried that I would murder someone than I am worried about her cheating on me. Yeah.
Are you worried that she might murder somebody? Just to get that out of the way.
No. I'm not worried. Again, I'm not worried about it. But if she did, she's got her reasons, and
right.
We're cool. Do you have a list of trust tiers or whatnot in a relationship that, if broken, are black and white enders? Like, do you have the no-go zone where, for me, it's cheating, and veganism is probably a no-go? But are there any others?
I don't. I mean, I think that cheating is definitely up there. I not just the
so it's not
momentary
100%
betrayal.
So it is not. So even having been cheated on, it's still not 100% deal breaker for you.
I don't know. I feel like it's very circumstantial.
Okay.
I mean, in a way. I mean, because you're right. There is sort of a loss of trust, and that goes with everything. And you can't help when you've been cheated on to sort of always be taking pot shots, because you're like, there's just no outlet that will get rid of the bad energy that's inside of your body. You have to just constantly punish the person. And so I think that's probably why a lot of relationships don't survive a cheat, is because it's not necessarily the betrayal itself, but all of the shit that comes, all the baggage that comes with it afterward. I mean, I would say that I'm pretty black and white on the cheating. I don't know how I would feel if somebody told me they cheated on me 10 years ago. Like that's different. How long have you been married? I have no sense.
6 years.
6. So, but you've known
we've been dating
your
for
wife
10,
for a very long time.
Yeah.
So if you found out that she cheated on you with somebody else 9 years ago, would that be that would affect you in the same way than if she told you today?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But she was given the opportunity 10 years ago and she didn't. She told me about it. So I have faith that she didn't.
No.
But no, that would be a deal. It'd be done.
See, I think ultimately it's a very academic conversation to talk about cheating before it's ever happened, because it really is one of those things where it's sort of like reading a book on how to swim.
Okay.
You really aren't going to get, there's only so much you can read about it until you got to get wet.
Mm-hmm.
So not to discount the conversation, but I think that it's just one of those things that you just don't know what's going to happen, right? You don't know what's going to, like, I do wonder more academically for myself, what would happen in the situation if you were to be, let's say at some point, hypothetically, you start having a physical relationship with somebody, or have just a one-off one-night stand with somebody, and your wife finds out about it. What will happen?
Sure.
Will she think the same thing?
Sure.
So I kind of thought that because you have such a black and white view on cheating, that maybe somebody had cheated on you before and you were not a fan, and so that's not something you wanted to go through again. But I'm getting the sense that's not the case.
Yeah, so I haven't been cheated on by a woman, like in a relationship. The closest thing, I've had a lot of friendships that have fallen through dramatically in my past. So I actually don't trust friends anymore. And I think that's gone that's where the cheating on me from a relationship standpoint comes. So that was more like I had really close friends in high school that like just bailed on me very towards like the end of high school. I had a really good friend in college that like turned out not to be the best guy, generally for me. And so I've had like people I've been really close to before just kind of like bail. And so that probably impacts my theory of relationships. Interestingly enough, I've been broken up with once. And I couldn't even make myself cry about it. So, it's not, I never had this issue with women generally.
To murder somebody requires a specific type of person. I'm curious, would if you found out today that your wife murdered somebody, which we know that you would be okay with ultimately, but would it change? Would there be something that changed? Right? Would there be something about it like, oh, like that's a new thing? Sort of like if, for example, if you found out that she hates the taste of red meat.
Yeah, peanut butter or something. She just stopped like allergic to peanut butter all of a sudden.
Yeah, like it would just be like, oh, that's like a brand new thing that came out of nowhere and doesn't make any sense. And now it's this new. It's almost like if she were to have an arm amputated. It's like this new thing that now you have to deal with.
Yeah, if she went vegan.
If she went vegan, if she came home, she's like, we're going vegan.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Right? Again, right? I think at the end of the day, it's like a hierarchy of trust, and there are certain things that break your trust with me, and there are certain things that I'm okay with you doing. So right, it would be a pain in the ass if like she came in back with one arm or vegan or whatever, but
right.
It doesn't influence our relationship in any way in the sense of, right, we can still have the same conversations, we can still do things together, just a little bit more pain in the assly as we go.
Right. But even if you could take out the she might get caught problem.
Okay.
There wouldn't be something in the back of your mind that said, this is not the person, because right now you don't think of her as a murderer. You would just be okay that if she did.
Sure.
So the fact that when she crosses over the murder line,
okay.
Is there any kind of just seed planted in the back of your mind where she's the idea that there's somebody that I know, am married to, and is the mother of my child, that it can murder somebody?
Yeah. I've watched a lot of Criminal Minds, which I think is aimed at 40-year-old women. So there's that. But I've seen every episode. And yeah, the physical act of doing that to someone, to me, I don't see how anyone could do that. Like there must be something not totally correct in your brain if you're murdering someone generally.
Right. I agree.
And so to the effect that it changed her personality, right? That might have an impact on our relationship in some way. But I mean, if she's cool with it, I'm cool with it.
Not even her personality. Let's say that hers was the same. But just the idea, it would be totally psychological for you. Do you not foresee?
I compartmentalize this stuff so much that I don't think it. I mean, right? I'm assuming by you saying all these things that like you believe them. Is that not like? Do you?
Well, first of all, I would have a problem if Jesse came to me and said, "By the way, don't tell anybody, but I killed the guy from work."
Did you get a raise out of it? Like that's the important part.
Well, first of all, I am now complicit in that murder. So there is that part where I now know about it, and somebody died because of you, and I have to now live with that for the rest of my life because of some choice that you made. And I'm assuming you didn't consult with me, or I didn't have a say in this, and now you've dragged me into it.
Mm-hmm. So the one thing I did realize when you were saying that was right. So being married, we have special privilege, and so she can tell me, and it can't be used against me, she can't be used against her in the court of law. Like she can prevent it from being said in a murder hearing. I've learned. So
right.
So, like I'm not complicit in the murder if she does it, which is kind of interesting on some level. Yeah, I mean, getting caught, I think, is a big part of it because then it has no material impact on our relationship.
Right. I think killing somebody and getting caught is definitely not living to retire. Right? I think that goes against that method.
Oh, golly.
So, Chris, have you arrived at any differences in your opinion now that we've gotten to the end of this?
Nope. As long as she doesn't go vegan, we're good to go.
you're slowly stepping toward veganism. You know that, right? Like they're very small baby steps, but the fact that you had an Impossible or Beyond Whopper, whichever one it is, that is your first step. You've already started the journey.
Yeah, it's actually, and I'm eating healthy. It's really sad. Like, I don't know how you live with yourself,